Okay, after finishing Kunikuman, I took a moment to look through a bunch of shows on Netflix to try and decide what I wanted to watch next. And yeah, everything I tried was garbage. The Alexander the Great documentary. Oh man, gay shit right off the bat. We I watched a couple of other anime. Witch Watch garbage, Jujutsu Kaisen garbage, Dan to Dan garbage. All of that was shit. I tried to watch I don't know Lost, which was bad. There's just really nothing good on this service to begin with, and honestly, I'm already kind of planning on ending my subscription. But I did end up watching Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated, which is awesome, and I'm probably gonna try to get through that over the next several weeks. Again, I've always liked the show, always wanted to go back to it, but again, I don't think I need Netflix for that. There are probably just so many other avenues I could have watched this. Looking at the selection of anime in particular, it's sparse, bro. You're better off going on Amazon Prime. You're better off going to Crunchyroll. You're better off I don't know, finding some uh obscure YouTube re-upload. I remember I watched all of Hajime no Ippo on YouTube, not even that long ago, back in 2018. I remember, it's just so weird to me, actually being subbed to Netflix, actually watching stuff, and kind of going through this weird phase of trying to find what's on there, and just being well, on one hand, there's a handful of exclusives I really, really like. Pokemon Concierge was great. I love Kinnikuman, but Devilman Crybaby, I do need to finish. But as a whole, it's what exactly am I paying this service for? I'd much rather go pay for something like Crunchyroll, which gives me older, higher quality anime, subbed, no modern dubs, no they thems. I would rather just watch these older sub shows than ever bother with anything made after 2004, because there has been a severe dip in anime quality in recent years, and I think a big part of it is just that manga just isn't as good as it used to be. It's kind of interesting when I look at the selection, because One Piece is still and has been the dominant force in the industry since '97. And Dragon Ball is still watched. Naruto, as much as many problems as I have with Naruto and Bleach, at least they're actually appealing. They're actually funny. They actually have some kind of draw to them. There's people still make memes and jokes about things like the Naruto run, and the whole Rukia and Orihime thing. There's Bleach and Naruto are these huge cultural milestones that even kids today still watch and enjoy. I don't see anybody outside of hardcore weebs ever watching anything Witch Watch or Dan to Dan. These shows fundamentally have no appeal. They're not well made. They're not interesting. They're not well animated. Their premises are dumb. They hinge entirely on this on the most obscure, the most mainstream Japanese fantasy ever. Is that I wish a girl noticed me in high school. Absolute bullshit. Anime used to be about going on adventures. It used to be about becoming a better person. It used to be about I don't know, having these lifelong friendships and going into these becoming stronger and stronger. That's what anime used to be about. But now it's oh man, that girl said something to me in class. I guess I gotta talk to her about UFOs. Come the fuck on. You have no creativity, you have no talent, you have no ability to make anything that really appeals to anybody. All you're doing is trying to appease weebs who just are too nervous to talk to a girl. That's just the situation of the industry right now, is that it has become too hyper focused on fetishizing women to people who just do not talk to girls. That's just the reality of it. That's just the core problem we're seeing with like modern shows and modern culture, honestly. Because this is the thing we keep seeing when it comes to like people who purport themselves to be like hardcore anime enthusiasts. They don't talk about like good, well animated, like badass shows. They hype up like moe bullshit. They try and defend a lolicon. They try to normalize pedophilia. Okay, they try and like unironically go with like the big bro thing. Like they are the absolute scum of the universe, and really should be derided, not just by normies, but by like more serious anime fans in general. And that's kind of my view on it. Looking at this, seeing like how I personally was gaslit by these kind of like lolicons for a long time about this idea that it was perfectly normal, that it was acceptable, that it was our culture, that if you don't like it, you can get the fuck out. Like, I've come to realize that that's just not actually true, because these moe shows, they are not well made. They are not well produced. They do not have engaging like storytelling. They're not like fun to watch. The only reason you would ever watch one is if you fetishize underage girls, and that's just the reality of it. When I look at something like Witch Watch, I don't see like this compelling romance between like childhood friends, like with their own interesting like perspectives and like their own differing experiences and how they come together. Something like Bankaido's origins, just as an example. Like you don't have like this good, well written romance. Like you have this like weird fetishization of the idea where like the teenage girl is just like, oh, we're gonna be living together and I'm gonna have all these fantasies about you, and like it's gonna be my entire identity, and I'm not gonna have any real interest out of this vague idea that I'm gonna help people. It's like it's shocking how like when you watch Bleach, okay, Orihime has a thing for Ichigo, right? Obviously, they're obviously gonna be together. That was obvious from the onset, right? Like you look at like characters like Orihime, and she has like other things going for her, her unique powers, her relationship to other characters, her fun personality, it's interesting watching Witch Watch, because like the girl in it, Nico, it feels like she's like a Temu or a Hime in that sense, where it's like the same archetype, where she's like kind of an airhead who's like sweet to everyone, which is like, something that Japanese people really like. But like Orihime is like a better executed version of the archetype, and like it's to the point where like if you're familiar with Bleach at all, like you would come away from Witch Watch thinking that like this doesn't have what I came for, what made me interested in Bleach. Bleach had like those kind of characters and those kind of dynamics, but it also had like the things that really drew people in, like the fantasy vibe, like the gorgeous artwork. Like you just don't see that out of modern series. Like and it's so interesting to see just how many of these series that are like hyped up as like the next big thing, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, Black Clover, like none of them leave any kind of impact compared to what came before. We are in this weird creative slump when it comes to like manga as a whole, and like what we're seeing now, I think, is that like a lot of like more niche things, stuff that are coming from creators from smaller companies, are finally starting to get traction here. People are starting to like Attack on Titan blew up, fantastic, the best of the decade, one of my favorite things of all time. Love Attack on Titan. People are starting to read like older stuff is getting re-released. They just, I think they just re-released Tomorrow Joe in English, actually. I have that on my backlog. You have, like, people are more willing to try stuff like sports anime and, like, slice of life stuff. And, Spy Family is, like, this huge, huge hit. And, like, one of the highlights of Shonen Jump right now, far better than slop like Hunter x Hunter, by the way. Which, honestly, let's be real, Hunter x Hunter probably is what kicked off the trend of just having these generic like shonen series get hyped up because like, well, it's so amazing what could happen. Like you know, Hunter x Hunter is the worst. But yeah, like Spy Family like is the only ongoing shonen series I can think of that's like Jump series I can think of that's like genuinely high quality, genuinely a 10 out of 10, genuinely manages to innovate while still feeling like this very traditional series. More traditional, I think, than I would say even like a lot of 80s series, because, you know, so much of like classic anime and manga is like fetishizing youth, while like, you know, Spy Family is more about like family, you know, and like it does have older characters involved. You know, it's interesting where it kind of, because of the family setup, you have a character like Anya who's younger than most anime protagonists, and then you have like, you know, Yor and Twilight who are older. It's a nice contrast. It's a nice balance. It keeps it feeling fresh and gives it this like very unique vibe and personality. And they've been able to do so many unique, interesting things. If you're not up to date with the manga, like I think you would be very, very surprised at just how multifaceted and complex the story and the characters are. Like, it is the best ongoing series that I'm aware of that's still ongoing. But again, like, yeah, it feels like more stuff like that are taking off right now. You know, I think when I think of like great manga, you know, I think of Dr. Stone, I think of Attack on Titan, I think of like, you know, stuff like that. Like, I don't think of Dan to Dan. You know, I don't think of like Black Clover. And like, again, the only reason these shows got any kind of attention is that they were supposed to be the new Naruto or the new Bleach or the new Dragon Ball. Like, instead of being their own thing. Like again, One Piece is a really interesting case study because you can clearly see the influences on Dragon Ball. You know, Oda was very upfront about like how influenced he was by it. But like, One Piece was able to establish its own unique identity, its own unique visual style, its narrative structure, its formula, like, you know, its power system, all of which just, like, really distinguishes itself from Dragon Ball. And then you compare it to, like, Naruto or Bleach, where it's just like, I'm just gonna hit him harder this time. It's just, like, the difference in quality is just staggering. And, like, One Piece is still going, like, long after Bleach and One Piece kind of fell off. So, Bleach and Naruto fell off. Bleach and Naruto fell off. So that's kind of what we're seeing now. You know, that's what we're seeing now from this community, is that like there aren't any good modern manga series to base anime on. So like what ends up happening is that these studios just keep producing these like this bullshit to draw on otaku viewers, even though they don't really have anything going for them. Like, they're just... It's so unbelievably obnoxious. And it is something that we do need to call out, that, like, the shows are becoming lower quality, you know? And, like, it frustrates me so much to, you know, see something like, say, One Punch Man Season 3 come out, when that never should have happened, that never should have been allowed to happen. Like, why do these people feel like they can just, you know, take a genuinely good manga and just butcher it because they know that people are going to show up and watch it anyway? It's appalling. And, you know, I hope one day we get, like, a remake of One Punch Man. Hopefully we get, like, you know, kind of a return to form when it comes to animation, and, like, they don't try and cheap out with AI or anything like that. It does need to be said that the industry needs to value quality more. You know, the idea that like you should create the product for people who just mindlessly consume everything, as long as it appeals to like their base instincts. This idea that like, oh, I'll watch it for the cute girls. Like that needs to stop. Okay, that is 100% something that's holding the industry back, and these people need to put more effort into creating high quality franchises. Animation that people actually want to watch.